Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, attendance is enabled. Yeah, I'm just recovering. Thank you. The attendance is enabled, guys. So mark the attendance. Yeah, guys, the attendance is enabled, and we'll probably just wait for a couple of more minutes, and then we'll start. Yeah, okay. So we've crossed the 60 barrier. I think that is a good point. Okay, so first of all, thank you for all the support. Yeah, this it has the past few weeks have been really hectic for me and my family. So yeah, we have gone. I mean, we are certainly running behind schedule. So that is right. As far as our current goals are concerned, the first thing that we have to do is basically do just enough code so that we can have something for the midsem. And after that, beyond midsem, we'll see what we can do. Um, we did have 2 weeks for project purposes. So what we can do is we can probably reduce the weightage of project, and then maybe have them go on in parallel instead of keeping 2 weeks of time reserved for them, something like that. So I mean, and of course we may have to take up a few extra classes as well. I'll try my best to catch up. we'll, I know a good number of students are also facing similar issues. This pandemic is actually a very it's basically affecting each one of us. So we'll try to find out a solution post midsem. But the first milestone is to do just enough so that we can have at least an exam. So um, I have already uploaded 2 lectures. I am planning to upload one more today. Actually, it should have been uploaded yesterday itself, but again, some family issues came up. So I'm expecting that I'll upload it by tonight, and there will be like one more lecture in the next 3 days or so. Um, so I know that for the last lecture you won't get enough time to prepare, but what I'll do is, of course, it will be just programming. So I'm assuming it will be far more interesting for you guys to go through that. What I'll do is on 19th, I think your exam is on 20th, right? So on 19th evening, I'll have a common extra class where you guys can come up and ask me your doubts. Okay, if you would like, I can also, let us say, go through certain parts of these 2 lectures again, so that if there are any doubts, it'll be cleared right before the exam. So the as I said, right, the current milestone, the current thing that we have to achieve is somehow do enough so that we can go ahead with the midsem exams. So in the midsem exams, everything up to those 2 lectures that you will get uh, today and maybe a couple of days later, that will be the part of your midsem syllabus. And it will be a smaller midsem this time because we haven't covered much. I'm planning to have only 15 questions for, let us say, 20 minutes or so. So it will be um, a small exam, which uh, which will and we'll have to even reevaluate everything, right? We'll have to probably reevaluate the weightage for midsem, weightage for project. But let's do all these things post midsem. I'll get one more week to for my health to get slightly more better. I'm just hoping that it'll get better. It hasn't really gotten better much from the past 1 week or so. It's pretty much constant. But again, right? I mean, I'm expecting that things will get better. Anyhow, so what I'll do is I have uploaded 2 lectures, and one of those lectures is about introduction to C++. This was supposed to be a extra class in which I would have shown you the code and everything. It's just that it never happened. So what I'll do is, in today's lecture meeting, I'll just go through that lecture at a very high pace. I still would like you guys to go back and watch the lecture on YouTube or download it from Google Drive. But I'll just go through it in a very fast-paced fashion. if you guys have already seen the lecture and you have you have some doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, you can just try to follow it as it is. If there are some problems, you can of course go back and check the lecture that has been already uploaded. Okay, let's start this. Okay. So as usual, I will not be able to check your chats once I go into the full screen mode. So if you have a question, you'll have to unmute and ask. Okay, let's start then. So I'm pretty sure you guys would have done a lot of C++ programming by now, especially because your seniors were teaching you C++ right from the first semester. Um, but from what I understood, they didn't really teach you C++. They probably teach you some C++ syntax so that you can write your code for these programming contests, right? Um, in essence, they only taught you C with some mixed syntax with C++, because I don't think you guys created any classes or anything. This is what someone told me, that even though you learned C++ from them, they didn't actually talk about classes and objects and stuff like that. So before we go to classes and objects, there is a concept. I'm pretty sure you would have written this statement many a times. Using namespace std, right? So there is a concept of a namespace in C++. So let us just start from there. That what exactly is this namespace? And for a moment, let us go back to C. So let me just use the laser pointer. So in C, let us say I give you this piece of code, right? And I ask you, what do you infer from this C code, right? So the first thing you'll see is that there are two include files, right? Add.h and multiply.h. And then you'll see that in the code, there are some functions like add to result, multiply with result. So a good educated guess would be that these files add.h and multiply.h are having declarations for add to result and multiply with result methods functions, and by adding them in your program, by including them in your program, you're basically going to use it. So this is a very common sense based approach to decipher this, right? And this is right, that essentially this is what is happening. The add to result functions are coming from add.h, and the multiply and multiply with result functions are coming from multiply.h. However, when you actually try to compile this code, right, you see that there will be an error, right? And this error is about this variable called result. Now, till now we haven't even seen what is result, right? I mean, I don't know from where this line came up: extern long result, extern int result. I don't know. In fact, if you actually start looking at these errors in a little more details, you'll come to know that these errors are coming from these two header files that I included: multiply.h and add.h. And what exactly is the problem? It says pre, there was a previous declaration for result here, right? So what is really happening is that this result variable is actually present in both these header files, add.h as well as multiply.h. Here it is, you can see, right? And even though we have done all this trick, right, this trick of not getting a particular piece of code included twice in a source file, even though we know how to do that, this will still not stop both these code blocks to get included in your program. And what will happen is, it will have two declarations for this result. In one case it is int, and in the other case it is long. And that is exactly what you are seeing as a problem. Now, the issue here is, if header files start having such problems, it will be really difficult, right? Why? Because usually we trust header files for for being good, let us say, right? I mean, we don't ever expect that we'll see an error which is whose source code is in a header file, right? Because we feel that yeah, the header files are all good, and that is the problem. That if let us say these header files are are having something that is common, and this will be a case. It is quite possible if these two header files have come from two different sources, then certainly there could be a clash in the name of a of a function or a variable. So then what should we do, right? I mean, what could be the issue to resolve this? In C, there doesn't seem to be a straightforward resolution for it. You will have to use ad hoc mechanisms to somehow avoid having clashes with other libraries. But in C++, there is certainly a way. Okay, and what is that way? This way is known as a namespace. So what happens is in C code, whenever you include something in your code file using the hash include directive, there is a kind of a global space. Okay, and all this code, whatever you are including through the hash include thing. So remember, what exactly does hash include do? It is just basically going to copy the content of that particular file, let us say at the point of the hash include statement. Okay, so the hash include stuff, whatever you include in your file, it's all part of the same space. And this is why the compiler says, within the same space I'm finding two declarations for the same variable. So what C++ did, they introduced the concept of a namespace. So what a namespace does is something like this. Instead of creating your variables and functions inside the global space, you can always create a namespace. Okay, so what does a namespace do? A namespace is nothing but just a collection of identifiers as in variables, functions, definitions. So a namespace, as its name suggests, is a space for names. Okay, and as long as everything is unique within the namespace, it's all fine. Okay, you will not have a problem. Outside the namespace, you can have duplicates. Okay, so two different namespaces can have the variable with the same name. Okay, and another advantage of these namespaces is that they can be hierarchical as in you can have, let us say, a namespace let ns1. Within that you can have another namespace ns2 and another namespace called ns3. So now what you can create variables in ns2, and the same variable names can be used in ns3, for example, right? So this is hierarchical. Usually we don't I don't see hierarchical namespaces being used much. So it is my personal advice not to use hierarchical namespaces. Usually it is much better to simply use single level namespaces, at least at this point of time when you're still learning how to code. Don't go for hierarchical namespaces. Try to keep things simple. But yeah, namespaces as a concept is very important. You get a space in which fields, in which variables and functions can be declared, and you don't have to worry of having a clash with any other variable or function, because as long as the other person whose code is going to get included is using a different namespace. And the way to access anything within a particular namespace is through this operator called the scope resolution operator, double colon, okay, colon two times. It is known as scope resolution operator. And whatever you want to access within a particular namespace, you basically put the name of the namespace, then the scope resolution operator, and then that function or that variable. So the same code that we saw in C, if you convert it into a C++ code, a equivalent C++ code, you can use namespaces. And this is how I have created two different namespaces: namespace add underscore ns and namespace multiply underscore ns. And if you can actually see that adding code to a namespace is very simple to creating a code block, right? So I have created a code block, and everything within this code block is basically in some ways isolated from everything in this code block, right? So you can have any number of duplicates here. Okay, and there's no problem whatsoever. And when you want to access it, then this is the way to do that. You basically put add underscore ns colon add underscore ns colon add to result. Similarly here it is multiply underscore ns colon multiply. So basically this is how we can actually call it as resolving the fully qualified name of a variable or a function. So this is known as the fully qualified name, that I start from the namespace, and then I if there is a hierarchy of namespaces, you'll have one more namespace here and then colon. So it's like this, right? So this is how you access a particular variable or a function that is present inside a namespace. Now I'll get back to this, but there is something known as something written here as std colon cout. Now I'm pretty sure you guys would have used cout and cin a lot of times, and you would not have put it here. But let us see why I have put it here. But before that, this is the execution now. If you compile it now, it works fine because those two result variables belong to two different namespaces. Okay, so some more things about C++. So the first thing you have to know is on most platforms, the C++ header files do not have that .h extension. Okay, the .h extension as in stdio.h or stdlib.h. So all those .h files that you have been including in your programs in C++, the standard library usually does not have a .h prefix for the header files. So that is why the equivalent of stdio.h, which is, you can call it equivalent. I'm not sure whether it's the correct term or not, but yeah, in most cases you can call it the equivalent of stdio.h. In C++, it is called iostream, just iostream, not iostream.h. Okay. Again, on some platforms you might have to write iostream.h. If I'm not wrong, the good old Turbo C++, I think some of you might have it with you. I think there you have to write iostream.h. But if you're using G++, then you'll have to write iostream. And similar to printf, there is something known as cout in C++. Now there is a difference between printf and cout. Printf is actually a function, whereas cout is a stream. Don't worry much about what a stream is. You'll get to know more about streams as you start using them. But uh, for all intents and purposes, printf and cout are equivalent to each other. And similarly, the equivalent of scanf in C++ is cin. Okay, this is cout, this is cin. And again, this too is not really a function but a stream. And similar to printf and scanf, you can print multiple variables or messages at one time using cout. um, to do that, you basically concatenate everything in your output using this insertion operator. It looks like this, two less than signs together. And similarly, if you want to take input in more than one variable, then you can use the uh, extraction operator. It looks like two greater than signs, one after the other. And again, it is similar to scanf and printf. So this is the hello world program. Now you can see that I have written cout and hello world. This endl is just the equivalent of /n. I could have also written /n here. It would have worked. Um, for all intents and purposes, there are some changes. There are some differences between endl and /n. But for now, let us not go in that direction. Let's just keep it here /n and endl. So endl is more like a /n variant. Okay. Now this is something that you guys have been doing, right? I'm pretty sure any one of you who would have written code in C++ would have probably written this particular statement using namespace std. So what exactly is this std? So I told you that in the case of that add and multiply, I created two new namespaces, add ns and multiply ns. And then I defined some code within that. And I said that within these code blocks, I don't need to care about the names of the variables. As long as they are unique within this block, I don't need to worry. So that was these were two different custom namespaces that I created. Now all the whole of the C++ standard library is added to a particular namespace called std. And it, the developers have taken care that there are no conflicts of variable names and functions within these header files. Okay, so that is something that they have taken care of. So they say that all the aspects, all the functions and variables of the C++ standard template library, they are part of a particular namespace called std. Now whenever, I actually did not really require writing this. I could have simply left it as as it is without this line. But and then in that case, I'll have to tell the compiler what exactly is cout, and to which namespace does cout belongs to, right? So in that case I would have written std colon colon cout, right? The fully qualified name for cout. The other way in which I can, and you can see it could be a slightly annoying thing to do after some time, because whatever you use from the standard template library, you'll have to put the std colon colon there. So this using namespace std, what it does, it basically imports all the names and definitions and function and declarations from the std namespace and put it into your current space, right? And no, now from here onwards, you don't actually have to tell that cout, the cout from std. Okay, it has already been included by this particular statement. But keep in mind, when you do using namespace, it doesn't mean that the code below is a part of that particular namespace. No, it's just basically a shortcut where you are importing everything from the namespace std, so that you don't have to write std again and again, right? This code still belongs to a different namespace, that is basically the default namespace. Okay, so keep this in mind. Hmm, okay, any questions still here? Okay. No questions? Okay. So let's move ahead. I like, it's a very small lecture actually. I think we are already done. So there are two more data types in C++ that are going to be useful for you. One is the bool data type. Now, if you remember, many a times in the C code, when you wrote code, you had to store a yes or no value, right? That basically, let's say I'm running a loop and I ask, do you want to continue? I will ask the user yes or no. So the only options that I expected the user to give me was either yes or no. And there was, these kind of variables were supposed to be in only one of these two states, the boolean states. But in C we did not have a data type for that, right? We had to use the char, for example, or int or short. It depends on you, what exactly did you use to represent it. But at the minimum you would have required a char. In C++, you already get a data type for it called bool, or essentially boolean. And a boolean data type can take two values, true and false. Okay, it can only take two possible values, true and false. And another data type which seems to be more like a primitive data type, but it is not really primitive. It's basically something that comes from your template library. It is string. Okay, and string, keep this in mind, that string is a class. Okay, it is not something which is a primitive data type. Okay, string is a class, and every time you instantiate, you create a new string, you are basically creating an object. That is the thing that you have to understand. The good thing with string is that there are some operations which are defined over its objects in pretty much the same fashion as they are defined, let us say, for any primitive data types. So for example, if you use the plus operator over two strings, it works as concatenation. So if you say hi plus world, essentially the new string is hi world, something like this, right? So, and you can do it as it is. I know you can write something like s3 equal to s1 plus s2, and in general you cannot do it for objects. Okay, keep this in mind, that you cannot use the plus or asterisk or any other such operators directly on objects. But with string there is something known as operator overloading. We will have a look at operator overloading later. But with string you can actually use the plus operator pretty much like you would do it on, let us say, integers or floats or doubles. Now, you can also access a particular string in the same fashion as you have been doing in C. So in C, what exactly was a string? It was basically a char array, and because it was an array, you can change or access any particular character using the subscript notation. So you can write, if the string was Saurabh, for example, you can say S0 and it will be S. You can say S1 and it will be A, S2 is U, so on and so forth. So all those things, that whatever things that you've been able to do with a typical array, a character array, all those things can also be done with strings. So you can write something like a string S equal to hi, and then you can write S0, okay, and then it will return H. In order to use it, you'll have to include this string header file in your program. You use to just write string, by the way, not string.h. That string.h file will actually include the string.h from your C realm. So please be careful whenever you include the string. Just include a string and not string.h. And as I just told you before, string is defined within the std namespace. So this is an example. This is, s1, s2 and s3 are three strings. You can simply create them like this by assigning them values like this. Again, this is why it looks like string is a primitive data type. In general, we don't do it like this. In general, you cannot create an object by simply doing equal to and supplying some value. There is a proper way of creating an object, but with strings you can do that. And this is the example of the operator overloading part. S3 is equal to S1 plus S2, and here you can see the bool variables. It is trying to store the result of this particular expression, S1 double equal to S2. If this is true, the answer will be true. If this is false, the answer will be false. And uh, okay, when you print these bool variables, the output will be 1 and 0. 1 means true and 0 means false. There is a way to actually print true and false, TRUE and FALSE. There is a way to do that, but to do that, yeah, how to do that, you'll have to go and check the homework. Okay, any queries, guys? Now, it's a very small lecture, so any questions? So this was just because we had not really had any formal introduction to C++. I knew that most of you did C++ in the previous semester through your programming classes, but I did not want to have any assumption. I wanted everyone to be on the same page. So for many of you, whatever I just told you, guys probably already know, but still, any questions related to that? It's all very basic, right? Okay. So I think we'll start with the second lecture tomorrow, and those two lectures that I'll add, they'll be a part of the midsem syllabus. I'll take another extra class on 19. So, and of course I will be available throughout on email while you study. Maybe um my replying frequency has gone down. It is true, and it might take a little more time for me to respond to your emails. But yeah, I'll still going to reply back. So if you have any doubts, if you have any issues, please keep on sending me emails. Okay, any questions?
So for
Yeah,
midsem
but
syllabus will be only this four lectures, or before
No, no,
lectures
no.
also
Whatever we
because
have covered before, and these 4 lectures, 2 I have uploaded, 2 I will upload.
so that lectures were first about IT introduction means
Yeah.
about
So,
ITP that we
so
had earlier.
yeah. So basically, introduction to object-oriented programming and everything, all those things.
Okay.
Yeah, and it will be a small exam. Mostly, I'd say 15 questions, 15 objective type questions only, and 20 minutes or so. It will be a small exam. And after we meet, when we meet after midsem, we'll discuss more about how to go about. Okay, there'll be so many things. I will have a common meeting, and please take care of yourself. I know the things are really bad out there, so please take care of yourself and your family. Any questions? Okay, then. So let's break, and we'll meet tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.